Hey guys, I am not dead. Yes, I am not dead. Just so for all 20 of my subscribers, basically I am not going to be releasing videos anymore on a weekly Friday schedule. Instead, I'm just going to release videos whenever I feel like it. Maybe when I get like 500 subscribers, I'll go back to releasing videos on a weekly basis, but until now, I'm just going to release new videos whenever I feel like it. So if you still like my channel and you still want to see videos when they do come out, just hit that little bell icon beside the subscribe button, and that'll give you alerts on when new videos come out. That being said, I'm gonna go see Stephen King's It. I'm both excited and not excited to see this film. I'm excited to see this film because the first It movie was was a big deal in my childhood. It was one of the first horror movies that I watched, and it was also one of the first horror movies that legitimately scared me. I remember really being traumatized by that movie, especially Tim Curry's performance as Pennywise. Nowadays, I can watch it just fine. It doesn't hold up as much as it did. Tim Curry's performance is still entertaining. But for the most part, wasn't really a big fan of half of that movie. I like the part when they were kids, and I like the fact that this movie is basically just those parts. But when they became adults, it was just kind of boring. I'm not excited to see this film for mostly two reasons. And these reasons don't necessarily... It's not because the film itself, it's more the genre of horror itself. The first reason I'm not really excited to see this is because I'm not a big fan of seeing horror movies in theaters. I don't think I don't think horror movies are made to be watched in theaters. I think horror movies are made to be watched when you're home, alone, in the dark. That is the atmosphere you need in order to properly get soaked into a horror movie's atmosphere. And I can't really get that atmosphere when I'm in a large room with a big screen and full with other people. Horror movies are kind of made to be watched at home, alone in the dark. And I definitely don't understand. I know a lot of people who watch horror movies only during the daytime or with other people. And if you watch horror movies in the daytime, you're a pussy. I'm just going to flat out say it right there. All right? You watch a horror movie at night. Be a man. The second reason I'm not a big fan of going to see horror movies in theaters is because I think the worst of theater attendees tend to somehow flock to horror movies. They flock to other movies as well, but generally horror movies are where you get the people who are always playing on their phones. You get the people who don't fucking shut up. You get the people who are always getting up and leaving. Horror movies, I don't know what it is, but in my experience, it always seems to attract the worst of theater goers, and I'm never. That's why I generally don't see a lot of horror movies in theaters. I usually wait until I can watch it at home. That being said, Stephen King's It. I'm cautiously optimistic about it. I mean, it's been getting good reviews. The trailers are really creepy. That one kid in the raincoat, I think his name is Georgie. Just watching the trailers, that kid gives it his all. Like, I mean, you watch him and he's just like, you'll float too, you'll float too, you'll float too, you'll float too. It's just like, Jesus, alright, this movie is going to be intense. So, yeah, I don't know where I kind of stand going into this movie, but hopefully it's good. Hopefully it lives up to the hype. That's pretty much all I gotta say going into it. So, I'll see you guys when I get out. Peace.
What happens when another Georgie goes missing? Or one of us? Are you just gonna pretend it isn't happening like everyone else in this town? If we stick together, we'll win.
Foo boy, did I call it. That had to be one of the most annoying audiences I have ever sat in a movie theater with. There was at least 3 people talking on their phones. There was, I'm pretty sure at least 4 or 5 people got up and left and then came back in, which I know probably isn't that big a deal, but it's a big deal. It bugs me personally. So many people were just obnoxious, talking through it. The lady behind me wouldn't shut up. Oh, so I apologize in advance. That probably means I'm going to be a lot more harsher on this movie than it probably deserves, because its audience put me in a bad mood. So I guess I'll just rattle off some of the good stuff of this film before I get into some of the bad stuff. The main good thing in this film is easily, without a doubt, the cast. Whoever the casting director was on this film, you did a fantastic job. Every single kid actor in this movie feels legit. There isn't a weak actor in the bunch, and that's very rare when it comes to child actors. Usually you can kind of tell they're giving a performance. It's very real. It's very rare for something to feel real. So yeah, bravo to every actor in this movie. Bravo. You all did a fantastic job. You all nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. And one of the great things about this movie is that it generally has one kid that you can root for. Actually, no, you can root for every single kid. You understand every single kid, and you like every single kid, but generally you're probably going to have your favorites. For me personally, Richie was obviously my favorite. Beep, beep, Richie. Beep, beep. I think he's going to be a lot of the favorites. I think that kid, apparently, from what I've been told, is that he's in that TV show Stranger Things, which I haven't watched yet. And after watching this movie, I kind of want to, because that kid was hilarious. He had all the best lines. I loved him. He was a really good comedic character. Very good timing. Very good job, kid. I don't know your name, but you did a fantastic job. Loved your character. Not the most interesting character, however. I think Beverly was probably the most interesting character in the bunch. She's the strongest character because I kind of understood her the most. I can understand every character, like, Bill, he just wants to forget about Georgie, his son, or not his son, his brother that was killed. I forget what his name, but I'm sorry. The fat kid, I'm sorry. I don't like using that, but the fat kid, I understood his character. He just wants to be accepted. Beverly, however, I thought was the most interesting character. And the fact that she's experienced nothing but lust her entire life. And all she wants is to experience a little bit of love. And she finds that in this film. She finds kind of relationship love. A little. She finds a little bit of relationship love, but it's mostly friendship. She finds her love through friendship. And I really liked that. I liked her character, her arc, and some of her scenes were some of the scariest of scenes, especially with her dad. Oh my God, was not expecting something that gruesome. One of the other things that I wrote in this film that was really good was it has a very good sense of humor, and I think that's kind of important in films. Especially horror films, it's important to have a little bit of a laugh every now and then, because if something's really, really dark and serious and depressing, it kind of bums the audience out. It's important to have that one character, in this case Richie, who can kind of break the tension, in a sense. And this film does a really good job of that. I love the conversation that these characters have. They feel like real kid conversations. I remember having some of these conversations with friends of mine at that age. This film does a very good job capturing what it's like to be a kid. One of the other things that I kind of really dug in this film was Pennywise, the dancing clown. It's a very different portrayal from what Tim Curry did. Tim Curry's Pennywise was a bit more of a playful Pennywise. This is a little bit more sadistic, which is probably a good direction to go after Tim Curry. You can't top Tim Curry, so you don't try. And I think that's what Bill Skarsgård. Is that how you pronounce his last name? Skarsgård? Whatever. I think that's what he tried to do. He's like, okay, I can't top Tim Curry, so I'll just try something different. And it works for the most part. He is actually a legitimately threatening presence. There's a lot of scenes where he's just kind of standing around staring at people, and it's unnerving. It's generally unnerving. And I like how he talks. I like his mannerisms. I like how he moves. He doesn't really move like a man. He kind of like is a little twitchy, and he doesn't move necessarily like it definitely feels more animalistic, and I like that. I like that he kind of captured that primal beast in a sense. And there's a lot of scenes where, like, he actually kind of tries to be funny, but it's a different kind of funny. Like, where Tim Curry, I can watch his scenes now and actually think they're quite hilarious. This is a different kind of funny. It's a more off-nerving funny. It's kind of like a dark sense of humor. And I kind of dug it. There was one scene in particular near the end where he's doing this weird little dance, and I was like, that's a little too far. But the rest of the scenes I really dug. I really enjoyed his performance. And it'll be interesting to see where they go in the sequel, because there's obviously going to be a sequel to this one. It flat out says at the end of the film that there's going to be a sequel. So yeah, I kind of really dug that. So yeah, that's kind of the majority of the main good things in this film. So let's actually talk about some of the bad things. There's not a whole lot of bad. I don't know if it was the theater setting, and I would have been a lot more scared if I was watching this at home, alone in the dark, like horror movies are supposed to be watched, or if this film really just wasn't all that scary. It's kind of hard to tell, because there is some scenes where there is legitimate tension, legitimate scares, but I was never like actually scared. I was just kind of like, okay, I feel like I should be scared, but I'm not. I think what it comes down to was it was either A, the fact that I saw this in the theaters, or B, the fact that there was so much going on. This is a very long movie, and it definitely is jam-packed with a lot of scenes, a lot of set pieces. And there's some really good horror set pieces, but because there's so much scary moments in here, or a whole bunch of moments that are trying to be scary, it almost feels like they're rushing to get through it. One of the most important things about horror movies is it's about taking your time. It's about actually building up tension. It's about it's about capturing the right mood, capturing just being scary in a film is a very tricky thing to do, because it all relies on lighting, it relies on camera movement, it relies on editing. If you cut too quick between scenes, excuse me, it can throw some people off. So this film, it almost feels like there would have been some really good scares if it took its time a little bit more developing those scares. There is some scenes actually where it does get very, very close. The hair scene was a legitimately scary film. There's a scene where Beverly's like looking in the sink and there's a bunch of hair and blood and stuff like that, and it's really creepy. The library scene was also another good example of scenes that felt almost creepy, but not exactly creepy. It almost felt like there was it almost felt like they were trying to get to a 10, but somehow they capsized at an 8 or a 9. And there is a lot of scenes that feel like they should have worked and should have been scary, but weren't. There's a scene in like a meat factory that wasn't as scary as it probably should have been. There's a scene where Bill goes down in the basement. It's from the scene in the trailers where he sees his brother. That felt like it should have been really scary, but it wasn't. And yeah, I guess that's kind of like the harshest thing that I can say about this film, is that it just really wasn't as scary as I thought it would be. Another flaw that I wrote was that it kind of, for lack of a better word, it kind of blew its load too early. There's a scene in the middle of the film where 3 characters are in a haunted house, and that was legitimately creepy. It was legitimately well done. That felt like a perfect climax. Or it felt like it should have been part of a perfect climax. But then for some reason the movie kind of stops and then fiddles around a little bit and then comes back and gives us the climax that we needed. It kind of felt like the film just kind of stopped dead in its tracks and then tried to catch itself up to a place where it was already there. Honestly, they should have went from the haunted house into the sewers, and the tension would have probably built a little bit better, opposed to just like building up that tension and then just stopping, dropping, and then having to build that tension up again. It just felt like a missed. It just kind of felt odd, in a sense. One of the things that is kind of a Stephen King trope, and it's not this movie's fault. It's definitely the source material it's based off of. Is that it kind of falls into the trappings or the cliches that we've seen in pretty much every Stephen King movie. You know, it's set in Maine, Derry, Maine. You got the stereotypical bullies. I really dislike the stereotypical bullies, but then again, I kind of didn't like. It's weird because I liked the bullies for what they were obviously doing. The bullies essentially are what brings the Losers Club together. There's kind of this message where good people usually band up and fight against bad people. The Losers Club essentially forms because of these bullies. So on one hand, these stereotypical bullies are really pivotal to the plot. But on the other hand, they're still stereotypical bullies. There's really nothing in Henry Bowers' character. I think that's his name, Henry Bowers. There's really nothing in his character where I was like, why are you doing this, kid? Or there wasn't any, like, a little bit of sympathy. There wasn't any round character here. It was just a stereotypical bully. He's a psychopath. That's the best way you can put it. He's like, the bully's the bad guy. And, yeah, that's it. Like, they tried a little bit. It almost kind of felt like they could have left that out, honestly. They could have devoted that screen time for the bullies and give it to the clown or give it to somebody else and just have it be the reason the Losers Club forms. I don't know. It's one of those things where, like, I don't like it, but at the same time, I see its importance. So, yeah, kind of color me half and half on the whole, like, bully, where I stand with the whole bully thing. So, yeah, that's, pretty much all I wrote. So I'll get to my final thoughts. Should you go see it in theaters? No. Not because it's a bad movie. It's not. It's definitely a good movie. It's got a lot of good things. It definitely tries. It's a decent film. But I don't think you should see it in theaters just because it's a horror movie, and I think this movie would work a lot better if you're watching it at home alone in the dark with maybe like a significant other or a couple of friends. This movie kind of would thrive a little bit better in that setting. Um, as is, it's not a bad film. It's definitely a lot better than some of the other horror films I've seen. But it's not the scariest movie of the year. It's not the scariest movie I've ever seen. It's just a decent flick. It's not. I wouldn't even go as far to say it's one of the best Stephen King Actually, no. You know what? It is one of the best Stephen King adaptations, but it's probably at the bottom of the best. Like, Green Mile, Shawshank Redemption, Stand By Me. Those kind of films are still at the top of the tippy top of the list, but it's up there. It's definitely in like maybe the top 10 Stephen King adaptations, but somewhere near the bottom. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts of Stephen King's It. Thank you guys for watching. If you want to see more videos, hit subscribe and be sure to click that little bell icon so you get alerts to when I release new videos. The next film I think I'll be seeing will either be The Kingsman or the American Assassin, I think it's called. I'm still not sure if I'm gonna go see that. Yeah. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.